I want to go into the book in two sections here. In the first, we must address the president. If President Trump was to read Destined for War, what would you want him to take away?
Wow, a good question. I'm not sure he reads books all the way through. He seems to enjoy briefings or photos more. Nonetheless, if he to read the book, I would hope he would take away 2 points. First, the condition that we find ourselves in today, in which a rising China threatens to displace a ruling U.S., create huge structural stress that creates great danger even of war. That's first. Secondly, that war is not inevitable. The wars that have occurred frequently were unnecessary wars, but only if we learn the lessons of history can we escape the traps of history.
One of the great phrases you have is, no, it's not make America great again, it's make China great again. How are the Chinese doing?
Well, I think if you do the comparison, this past week in the Wall Street Journal, there was a strong argument by Jason Furman, Obama's economic advisor, saying that it's fanciful to imagine the U.S. growing at much more than 2% a year. Trump has said we're going to grow at 3%. The slowdown in the Chinese economy is to 6%. So if China grows 3 times the rate of the U.S.,
it sounds like Furman mathematics. When I look back at World War II and the pacifists Douglas MacArthur and General Stilwell, those were 2 names that said, no, we have to look east. Are we any smarter now than we were back when we were that ignorant in the 40s and the 50s about China?
I think that we're still into fantasy land with respect to China. I think most people don't realize actually what's happened, that in our lifetime, an economy that didn't amount to anything has grown as large as we are, and it's on a track to be 50% larger by 2024. That a country that we look down on is now becoming a great, serious player everywhere. So I think we don't yet have quite the picture. Lee Kuan Yew, the founder of Singapore, was my sort of tutor on this, and he kept saying, Americans need to wake up. China is going to be the biggest player in the history of the world. You got to learn to get used to it and to adjust and to adapt.
But Professor Allison, you could argue that Donald Trump is adjusting to it. They're saying, well, I want to focus on America. I want to make America great again. And actually, China can do the Silk Road and do a lot of the investments and have the superpower kind of stature around the world, and he's okay with it. Well,
I think that you can see multiple strands in Donald Trump. In this book, I talk about Thucydides' trap. Thucydides was the great founder of history who wrote about the classical Greeks. And Thucydides said that when a rising power threatens to displace a ruling power, bad stuff happens. In this case, the ruling power, the U.S., Donald Trump is in effect an expression of what Thucydides would call the ruling power syndrome. That is, fearful of a China that has been growing and is having greater impact on our lives every day. Trump, in part, is saying, make America great by actually diminishing China. If you look in the campaign, China was the target. He now seems to be adapting and adjusting to some extent with respect to that. So I think that you see in the relationship between the U.S. and China, and especially in many of the things Trump says, this feeling that, wait a minute, there can't be another big, powerful player that's going to have that much impact on us. But I think we'll see how he manages to adapt and adjust. The fact that he's made Korea the test case, I think, is not optimistic.